Hey, what's going on, Ram fans? I have a couple special guests with us tonight to talk NFL draft. Jeremy Betz and Andrew Wilbur of the Draft Dynasty podcast. What's going on, guys?
How's it going, Mark? Thanks for having us on.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, I had you guys on. It was late summer, I think, to talk fantasy football. And as part of the Fans First Sports Network, they pointed me towards you guys to talk NFL draft. And Ian will be joining us shortly, and he'll have some questions too. Hey, tell us about your podcast first, so everybody knows about it.
Yeah, so the Draft Dynasty podcast is kind of a newer work for us. We used to roll in around draft time and do the Fans First draft show, but we kind of rolled it all up into one now, doing the fantasy side of things when that's relevant and hitting the NFL draft when that's relevant. We kind of say it's all draft all the time for us, whether fantasy or for real. We've got you covered on the Draft Dynasty podcast. So if you're looking for fantasy football information, if you're looking for NFL draft content, we've got it all there. And right now it's heavy draft, but here soon we'll be breaking down some of the fantasy implications of the draft, things along those lines as well. It's going to be fun.
Oh, great. Here comes Ian. Hey, Ian, we already got rolling without you. This is Jeremy and Andrew. And I already filled them in. You're the X and O guy. You're going to have a lot of good questions for these guys, I know. I'll kick it off with my first question. There's a lot of wide receivers in this draft. Ian did a bit on wide receiver. Have you done the wide receivers yet? No, you.
I'm not done with them, but we will. I will have like my top 10 list or
Yeah,
rounds
and
one,
it's a
two, three worthy. It's a lot of good ones, man. A lot of good ones, gentlemen.
Yeah, it's a really deep class. And one of the questions I had, I think the Rams are going to go offense. That's my inkling, anyways. And if they go wide receiver, there's a couple of guys that could be there. Egbuka, maybe Golden. If it were you, is there that much separation? Do you just wait until the third round and maybe grab one of those talented guys in the third round? Is there that much separation between the Goldens and the Burdens and these third round wide receivers? How do you feel about them?
I think in this draft, it's interesting because Jeremy and I have been talking about this the last couple of weeks on how this draft in general, I've been saying it for a couple months. I believe this is one of the weakest drafts that we've had in quite some time from top to bottom. And it's not because there's a lack of talent, but the talent did not either produce or there were injuries. You're talking about a lot of the guys, we're talking even in the first round, regardless of position, a lot of these edge rushers, James Pierce didn't produce, Michael Williams didn't produce. Some of these other top name players got injured or suffered injuries this past season. Will Johnson, he's starting to slip on boards. It's not so much a lack of talent, but a lack of production. And when you look at the receiver class specifically, I take a guy who is actually my number 2 rated receiver, Luther Burden. He's a guy that I know that you had mentioned could be available there at 26. I think he'd be a great fit for the Rams. You talk about what they already have with Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, guys who can get that possession on the outside, but having that guy who can create after the catch and be that explosive playmaker in the middle of the field, I think would be great. And Luther Burden reminds me a lot of Jalen Waddle after the catch, the way that of how explosive he is, how he tracks the ball down the field. I really like Luther Burden. I think he's one of the more underrated receivers. But again, a guy that didn't produce. And I think once you get into that third round, Jeremy's got a couple guys. I'm sure I've got a couple guys as well that we both like. But once you hit that third, fourth round range, it's a lot of height, weight, speed guys that are just kind of shots in the dark. I really like Dante Thornton from Tennessee. I know Jeremy's got several guys that he likes. But again, they're not proven. Whereas if you want to nail the receiver spot, I think in this draft, the key would be either using that pick at 26 or maybe a slight trade back even. Luther Burden, most mock drafts, isn't going in round 1 right now. Maybe a slight trade back could get a little extra value and still land a guy like Burden at the top of the second round. Maybe a team like the Giants or the Browns don't take a quarterback at 2 or 3. And if Shador Sanders or Jackson Dart fall, maybe if they're afraid the Rams want to take a quarterback, maybe they try to negotiate a deal there and the Rams can move back and get some value. That would kind of be what I would do if I were in the general manager role for the Rams.
Yeah, and then there's the TCU guy, Jack Besh, right? And he could be there third roundish maybe.
And Savion Williams as well.
Right. So Ian, have you dove into the wide receivers? You chime in on that? Are you ready to do that yet? They're guys you like?
Look at Travis Hunter's number 1. His tape is ridiculous.
Yep.
Oh my God. Okay, so he's
Mhm.
in his own, not happening. And I'm kind of torn between Luther, and you're right about the production though, because the Missouri offense didn't get a lot of these huge opportunities and it wasn't showcased. A lot of gadget plays, but he was incredible. I really do like him. And you know what? I've really turned a corner on the Texas wide receiver Matthew Golden. I've liked him a lot more than I originally thought after watching some film. Now, look, let's just be honest about it. Did he actually run a 4.2940? Was there probably some metrics that were a little messed up there? You know, like the physical equipment.
Yeah.
I kind of think so. Because, guys, watching the film on him, I think he's more like 4.43, 4.44, 4.45. Still fast, but I wouldn't say blazing like his teammate. I'm blanking on his name right now. But
Isaiah
I think
Bond.
the
Isaiah
next
Bond.
couple,
Isaiah Bond,
Isaiah
yeah.
Bond. I couldn't think of it right now. But thank you on that. So I do like the Luther Burden. I do like Golden as the next couple guys that I think would be great fits for the Rams, but I think would be first round worthy at the tail end based on, everyone's got issues, right? Golden,
Mhm.
not the super explosive, holy crap, right? But I do like everything about his game. Do you think he would be worthy for the Rams at 26? What are your opinions on him if, let's just say, Luther is not available? He's already selected. What do you think?
Yeah, so for me, I think the way it's trending, just because of the lack of like high end wide receiver talent, it's really just kind of a blob of late day one, early day two guys that kind of
Yeah.
seem to be sitting together. I think that pushes Matthew Golden up in this draft. I could see him going as high as 12 to Dallas. There's a world where they see him as the perfect complement to CeeDee Lamb as kind of the field stretcher on the outside. But if he were to start hanging around in the 20s, I think that gets really interesting for a team like the Rams, where you've got Puka Nacua in the building. And if I were going to pick a Puka Nacua in this draft class, it's going to be Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State, kind of the
Yeah.
do it all, not super flashy at any one thing, but kind of do it all and it's going to do it well kind of guy. So you want something that challenges defenses in a little bit different way. Matthew Golden, Luther Burden are the guys that fit in that realm to me. And then a guy I don't think we're talking about in the first round consideration as much as we should be is Jaden Higgins. His stock has been skyrocketing in the offseason here after he runs in the 4.4s, and you see some of the high pointing on tape that he's able to do, the ability to use his full frame as a receiver. That would be a little bit different than what the Rams have had historically. Now, I know you've got Devontae Adams there. He kind of gives you a little bit of that, but even still, you get a true X receiver in like a Jaden Higgins, and you can really start to see this wide receiver room come together for a push this year for the Rams to go win something.
I have him as I'm pulling on my notes here. I'm not done with the receivers. I'm still have my final rankings, but he's my 7th wide receiver. Obviously, Travis being number 1, you can go down that list. He's pretty dang good too. I know it's almost better, gentlemen, huh? Like you said earlier, Andrew, probably trade back and then get more value, get more picks, and be able to still get some high impact players. But I have liked Luther Burden's tape, and I have liked Matthew Golden's as those first round, late first round worthy guys. But yeah, Higgins, I like him too, man. He's good.
So, Ian, you did a bit on the quarterbacks, and there was a couple that you really liked. So, have at it. Tell Andrew and Jeremy about the guys that stood out for you.
Oh yeah, gentlemen. I mean, okay. Cam Ward, clear number 1. I have Shedeur Sanders as a round 1 quarterback. I don't know where he fits, as we know quarterbacks get overinflated all the time. So he'll go. I think maybe in previous years or even like last year's class, he's maybe a first rounder. Like it's questionable, right? So we know he's going to go at some point. Then I have a lump of guys that are rounds 2 and 3 kind of together depending on your flavor and what you like. I have Dart, Milrow, and I like Dylan Gabriel a lot, actually. Dylan Gabriel, and let me pull on my notepad here. I have it. I also have Syracuse quarterback McCord. I really liked his film. I mean, it's based on, not like, oh my gosh, wow. But I do got to ask you guys about Milrow out of them all. Now, how do you feel about his tape with his throwing? Just purely off that. We all know about the running ability. That's holy crap when you watch it. His throwing Give me your takes on that, both of you gentlemen, please.
I think when you look at Milroe as a passer, it's not really even so much the accuracy, because you look at games like Georgia. That Georgia game was phenomenal for Jalen Milroe as a runner, as a passer, all the way around. Absolutely fantastic. He has the traits. Becoming consistent at is one thing, but I think the bigger thing with him is the mental processing aspect. He is a very slow processor, and that would be my one concern with him. Overall, and Jeremy knows this as well, I'm a big Jalen Milroe fan on day 2. If he happens to fall to day 2, he will be my favorite quarterback there. I would take him over Tyler Shuck. I would take him over Will Howard. I'd take him over Quinn Ewers. Any guy that's going to go on day 2 for sure, I would take him over that. And quite honestly, I've got a pretty similar grade on Jackson Dart. Most people are, have a significant drop off after Jackson Dart. I've got him right there. Like, I really do like Jalen Milroe, because you see, he is just in the classroom. He's smart. He has the smarts. He has the work ethic. He has the drive. And when you pair that with the talent that he has, I mean, we forget that Lamar Jackson was an absolutely terrible passer coming out of college. I would say on the level of Jalen Milroe, or maybe even worse. And I understand Jalen Milroe is not as twitchy, but if you're talking about straight line fast, I mean, the man ran a 4.37 at the Alabama Pro Day. He's got the speed. He's a bigger body than Lamar Jackson. So I'm not trying to compare him to Lamar, but I do think in today's modern NFL game, he can succeed and have a great NFL career. It's going to take the right system, though, and I think what would be interesting about the Rams is that he's a totally different animal than any quarterback Sean McVay's ever worked with before, right? Like, we're trying to pair all these quarterbacks for the Rams. Oh, Jackson Dart, he'd be a great fit with the moxie. He'd be a great fit there. Tyler Shuck, all these guys. Jalen Milroe would be something we had never seen before in a Sean McVay offense. It'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, the Rams haven't had a dynamic quarterback like that in forever. They really haven't.
Yeah,
I found my right page finally, gentlemen. Apologies.
There you go.
Just shuffling through my notes on it.
I struggle to even think back to any quarterback that would be close to what we see out of Jalen Milroe that's played for the Rams. And maybe I'm just blanking on an obvious one here, but he's, especially for Sean McVay, the fit is very intriguing, and not always in a good way, in some good ways, but there's also the fact, like, McVay's offense is designed to run on schedule, on time. And if you had to pick maybe one quarterback in this portion of the draft here that doesn't do that, it's Milroe. So
True.
There would have to be some real conversations in that building about how you make that work. What are you surrounding him with? And I think when you start, as from the wide receiver conversation we had earlier, surrounding him with a multitude of weapons that do different things, that would be case one for how it could work. And then you've got the mind of McVay that can kind of just run and go with anybody. So if I had to say highest upside quarterback that's not Cam Ward in this draft, that person is Jalen Milroe for me. But he does absolutely need to settle down. One thing that could really, really help him, I think, that McVay implicates really well as a play caller, is the play action, the rollout game, limiting to half-field reads while still allowing for some of the dynamic options in the run game and things like that. You start to look at other needs like offensive tackle too. Do they need to improve at offensive tackle if they're going to go out and get a guy who likes to hold the ball a little bit longer, who needs to be able to roll out and play half the field at times? So there's a way it works for me, but there's going to have to be a pretty significant upheaval to the way we've seen the Rams do things in the past to make a Jalen Milroe work. But if I trust anybody to do that, I'd trust McVay.
Yeah, gentlemen, I mean, this is my favorite quarterback out of the whole class, outside of just the holy crap plays and the wow, right? Yep. The quote unquote wow stuff that makes you say, all right, well, this guy boosted his stock when you're watching film, on your own personal notes. But I do think a couple years behind Stafford would do him well. So I'm happy to hear that you guys agree with that. And gosh, let me say, the Jackson Dart stuff that's been going around about, oh, he's mocked that 26. I'm like, please, he is not a first round quarterback. I will lose my mind. So what do you guys think about that? About a lot of these insiders, these big, mock guys, right? Mocking Jackson Dart as a first round pick for the Rams. What do you feel about that?
Yeah, Andrew, real quick, if I can hop in here. My thought here, the way we've seen things happen at quarterback in the draft in recent years has been the opposite in actuality from what we've seen being pushed by the talking heads across the media landscape. They want to talk quarterbacks because that's the hot button issue. They want to push these guys up. But if you go back to 2022, Pittsburgh Steelers fans here, we're very aware of the 2022 draft class. Kenny Pickett goes, and I mean, Andrew and I were convinced that Malik Willis was going in the first round. There was a world where he goes before Kenny Pickett in our minds, and that didn't materialize. He doesn't even go in the second round. He goes in the third round. I don't think you see more than 2 quarterbacks go in the first round. And I think the rest of these guys start coming off the board on day 2. And I don't think these teams are going to be in a rush to get them. You've got a really deep running back class. You've got a really deep defensive tackle class, edge rusher class. The offensive line group starts to look really tantalizing on day 2 as well. Why shove a quarterback higher than you need it to be for a guy that you're not really sure about, especially for a team like the Rams, where you've got a guy for the next 2 years probably that's going to give you elite level snaps and keep you in contention. You've got time to try to figure it out without spending a third round pick when you don't have a second round pick on something where you could have used another pick.
I agree with what Jeremy's saying for a lot of it. And I wouldn't be shocked if a third quarterback goes. Yeah. But if you just look at the potential teams, I mean, we know that the Browns at 2, Adam Schefter is now saying that it looks like Travis Hunter seems to be the front runner for pick number 2 now. And immediately once we hear that, the New York Giants bring in Abdul Carter for a visit. So they're like, okay, well now Abdul Carter might be available. So now we're going to bring him in for a visit. And they had lunch with him at State College the other day. So now that interest is building. Okay, well, it makes it look like the Giants aren't looking at taking a quarterback at 3 either. The only other spot inside the top 10 that could potentially be a quarterback landing spot would be the Saints at 9 with Kellen Moore if he wants to handpick his guy. But even then, how do we know it's Shedeur Sanders? Maybe they take Jackson Dart. I mean, it's always a possibility. Yeah. They take him and Shedeur falls. But as Steelers fans, I mean, we're looking at all these mock drafts and everyone's trying to plug quarterback to the Steelers. And we could be wrong. The Steelers are showing interest in all the top quarterbacks. But when you look at what the Steelers are doing, even in terms of free agency, the compensatory formula, they are stockpiling draft picks for next year's draft class when the quarterback position is going to be way better than this year. You've got not just Arch Manning, you've got Nico Iamaleava from Tennessee, you've got Drew Aller from Penn State, you've got Jalen Daniels from Kansas. There's several other names too that could sneak into the first round. So next year's quarterback class and the following year are both going to be much better than this year. So I agree with Jeremy. Honestly, I could see a team maybe trading back up to get a second or the third quarterback, but I don't see them going near as high as what everyone is mocking them.
Yeah, I think Ian and I have talked about that. The Rams, that could play into the Rams' hands if they want to back out of the first. They're sitting there at 26, and these teams that passed on a quarterback earlier, and now they want to jump up and, like you're alluding to, overdraft a quarterback at 26, and the Rams pick up a second-round pick and maybe a fifth-rounder as well, something like that.
Yeah.
Hey, can we stick to offense here? And I wanted to get your thoughts on, I have this theory that Brock Bowers has, tainted the value, perhaps caused an overvalue of Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland. Are these guys as good as we're led to believe? And I've heard some experts are actually have Loveland ahead of Warren. How do you guys feel about these two guys? And the reason I bring it up is before you joined, Ian, I shared with Jeremy and Andrew that Sean McVay has twice tried to trade up for tight ends, and I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I think it's a little more realistic to maybe move up a few spots and draft Loveland. I don't think he's going to drop to 26. How do you feel about these two tight ends?
I'm glad that you mentioned about the trade the last couple seasons. That's good information to know because I do the mock drafts for Fans First Sports Network, so I'll have one coming out the day of the draft, the final mock draft. So that's good information that I'll probably use going into that final mock because I think that's where you will see some trade action in the teams this year because these two guys are two of the few premier players at a position that generally is not considered that important, but there's so few premier players in this draft that seem to be slam dunk picks. I think that could potentially move them up a little bit. The Bears could be a team with Ben Johnson if he wants to run some 12 personnel, get a second tight end to pair with Cole Kmet. The Saints could be in play there as well for Tyler Warren. The Panthers, you could even play them at 8. If they drop past those spots, though, you're looking at probably the Colts is the only other option, before you get into that 16-17 range. I could see if the Rams have a specific preference between the two, if both are available there, they move up for one, or they wait until one is off the board. And you look at a team like Cincinnati, maybe the top edge rushers are gone and they don't have a great option there. They feel like they can land a James Pierce or someone like that later in the first round. They're comfortable with that and they trade back. That could open up a spot for the Rams at the right price to go up. Personally, as good as I think both of those guys are, I'm just not a proponent of trading up much in general, and Jeremy knows that. I'm a huge trade back proponent almost every draft. So that's just me, though. I wouldn't disagree, though, by going up and getting one of the top premier players in the draft. And really, we haven't seen Sean McVay, what he can do with an elite tight end, because quite honestly, he hasn't had one. So if he feels like this is a primary component of his offense, how he wants to run his offense, by all means, I'm not going to doubt what McVay wants to do there.
Yeah, I think I don't think I'm guessing Ian is not a proponent of that either, but we both know Sean McVay well enough to know that it's a possibility.
Yeah.
So what are there any other players, positions on the offensive side you want to talk about, Ian?
Well, speaking of tight ends here then, gentlemen, because I'm curious, I've been watching film on both Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland. What do you think of their blocking? I've had buddies who are film junkies as well. Kind of, no one can really agree on this, whether they're good blockers or not, which I get is important, but I feel like a lot of it is technique and can be learned, and a lot of it's want to, right? It's like, all right, put your face in his chest and let's freaking go. Not that there aren't moments where they have that, but where do you guys have them, both those top two tight ends with the blocking? As it seems people are kind of like all over the place on them that I've talked to, film guys.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting because the play style and like body types of the two players, you just sit there and automatically assume that Tyler Warren's the more dynamic blocker of the two. But when you actually turn on the tape, there are some misses on Warren's tape that Loveland's a little bit more solid, in my opinion, from what I've seen on the tape. And it's not super flashy. I mean, he's not like Rob Gronkowski out there chucking defensive ends around or anything like that.
Yeah.
But if you're asking him to crack or to help out in pass pro a little bit, Loveland is very much passable as a blocker. Now you're going to use him in the Y a lot. Like he's going to be your Y tight end a lot, and Warren's going to be in more situations where he's in line, where he's up on the line of scrimmage. Running some of the more gadgety things that they might do, helping out as a run blocker, maybe playing some fullback. So I think you'll see just different styles out of them, but going into it, neither one is a complete prospect from pass catcher to blocker. Although I would say that both have the upside to be George Kittle-like two-way players at the position in that regard.
Yeah, I think on our go ahead.
I agree with a lot of what Jeremy's saying. I think with both guys, they're blocking. The issues are different. With Loveland, he needs to add more weight. He doesn't have a whole lot of power. Whereas with Warren, he has the size and he has the bulk. A lot has to do with more technical issues, positioning, hand positioning. Sometimes he gets his hands a little bit out too wide on the pads of opposing defenders. And also sometimes his pad level is a little bit too high. I think both of those are fixable issues, though. I definitely think Warren has more upside as a blocker long-term, but both of them still have a little bit of a ways to go. I do like the effort that they both give, and I do think that they have enough drive to potentially be those two-way tight ends. If I'm betting on one, though, as a Michigan fan, I would bet on Warren to get there first of the two.
Yeah, and Ram fans are arguing for a later tight end. There's a pretty good tight end draft as well. And one name that keeps on popping up on our when I perform mock drafts is Elijah Arroyo, the Miami tight end. A lot of Ram fans seem to love him, but there's a lot of guys in the third, fourth round, I think, that'll be available at that position.
Yeah, and gentlemen, I got one more tight end to ask you because this is somebody I've been starting to watch film on, and I've enjoyed his tape just as a pass catcher. Like blocking's got some work. Harold Fannin Jr. from Bowling Green. Guys, talk about a McVay tight end. This is a mold for it, right? Receiving threat, huge with the quick feet, great route running, in my opinion. Thus far, I haven't gone through every game. busy times, everyone. I'm working
Yeah,
on it.
that's right.
But
Yeah.
how do you feel about him? Because he's somebody who also, based on reports, had an awesome Senior Bowl week of practice. And the Rams and McVay and Snead have always pointed out how much they value those Senior Bowl practices, or like the All-Star practices they call it as well. But based on film, I really enjoyed it. How do you feel about him maybe as like a second, third round tight end?
I've been a huge fan of Harold Fannin Jr.
Yeah.
for really the entire season. I know that he didn't test outstandingly for his size. You would have liked to have seen him run a better 40 time. But when you watch the tape, the man just gets open.
Yeah.
He's always open, and he finds ways to create after the catch. And he's not your prototypical tight end who's going to be lining up and blocking a whole lot. He can fend off some nickel corners in the slot, and you're going to play him more as a matchup piece, right? You're not going to have him as that traditional wide tight end, but man, I tell you what, in an offense like Sean McVay's, I would love to see the creativity you could do. Play him as a fullback, play him as an H-back, and just move him around and be that kind of that little unique chess piece you can just get really creative with. I absolutely love him. I think he's probably more of a third, fourth round pick. He may fall to day 3. I'm probably going to have a late day 2 grade on him. But yeah, another name that we haven't mentioned yet, Mason Taylor from LSU. Mm-hmm. I think both he and Elijah Arroyo could be gone in the second round. And one other name, if Harold Fannin Jr. isn't there, Ordonde Gadsden from Syracuse as another guy who can be that matchup nightmare. Not going to be ever a complete tight end, more of an oversized receiver. But again, in an offense like Sean McVay's, could open up a lot of options.
Fannin Jr. to me is he just moves different than most people. He's fun to watch because it's very much not what you would coach a guy to do and how he operates. But out of his stance, nobody's quicker getting to the top of the route and then sinking hips into the break. And there's some portions of the film where he kind of gets lost, but it's Bowling Green. So you kind of say, okay, what do we throw out here? But then, I mean, you'll be watching somebody else. You'll be watching the offensive line and you'll see this blur off to the side of the screen as the pass goes. And it's like, how did he get that wide open? And it's not just slow linebackers or small corners. He's beating guys that are more athletic than him. He just has a knack and a feel for the game. He's one of those feel players for me where I can't go on tape and say, or go to the box score and his measurables and say, this is the reason this guy's winning. He just is a good football player and a very smart football player. So it's a very interesting evaluation. Does that always translate? I think it does a lot more often than we would give it credit for. Sometimes the guys who have all the skills, they don't work hard enough. And this is a guy who you'll never have to worry about working hard enough. He's going to always put that together.
Yeah, that's somebody I've really enjoyed. And those Senior Bowls, so for your mock drafts, if you do any extensive rounds 2, 3, and beyond, those Senior Bowl guys for the Rams, those are always people to always keep an eye out for because they value that all the time. Like Cooper Kupp was somebody who killed at the Senior Bowl. They're like, yep, we're taking you. Who else? Bo Limmer last year, who started a tons of games for us, was an awesome Senior Bowl practice participant. And then obviously, they 6th round, but he played well and then played some good football for us. So those are many guys. I mean, there's tons of other ones, but that's somebody I'm keeping my eye on for round 3 at least. If let's say the top guys aren't around. But good. I'm glad you guys agree because I've enjoyed his tape thus far as well.
Yeah.
Hey, if we could jump over to defense, I know Ian's going to have some questions about the defensive line, and I'm going to bring up another guy who's probably not going to last to 26, but he's probably one of my favorite players, Jahdae Barron. And the interesting thing about him is I'm not sure he's a good fit for the Rams. He's a little small, just a terrific football player, though, just makes plays. I was listening to some experts talk about him just today. His hand play on the ball is just incredible. He's the type of guy that I'm not sure I'd want the Rams to draft him because he may be limited where you can play him, but I don't want him ending up on the 49ers or the Seahawks. He's one of those guys that's just going to make a name for himself. No chance he's going to be there at 26 anyways, right? Despite his limitations.
I would agree with that. I think that he's going to go a bit higher than that, especially at the way he tested. The tape in and of itself was enough to sell me as a top 15 pick. Right now, I've got him at 8 overall on the big board. I
Oh,
think he is
wow.
that good of a player. That's not to say he's going to go that high. I think that Will Johnson could still go ahead of him. And I still have Will Johnson slightly rated higher. I've got him, I believe, at 6 on the board. But I think at the top, the corner class is very intriguing. And when you talk about Barron specifically, his schematic versatility. I mean, this guy, he can play with his back to the ball. He can play. He's great eyes on. He can break on the ball quickly. He's got great instincts, good ball skills. He can get physical. I think he's a perfect option if you maybe have a veteran corner on the outside who's near the end of his contract. You can play him in the nickel that first year and then put him out wide as that number 1 boundary corner in year 2. Absolutely love this guy's tape. He reminds me a lot of Joe Hayden, most notably with the Cleveland Browns, multi-time Pro Bowler over there. Very similar skill set in terms of not the greatest size, but man, just at a unique level of instincts and smarts and ways to approach the game. This guy's a great option. If he's somehow there, maybe if he falls enough, maybe he is a trade-up option. One name I will give you that I think would be a good fit for the Rams defense specifically, Trey Amos from Ole Miss. He would be another trade-back option, second-round guy, but tested a lot better than what people thought in terms of the speed. That was the big question, because when you watch him on tape, he's another guy that is kind of the poor man's Jedi Barron in this class. He can play man, he can play zone, not the most physical, but if you talk about just instincts and being able to read the ball, he can force receivers out to the outside. He's got long arms, so he can press a little bit. And if he can get that initial positioning at the line, he gives receivers fits down the field. So I think he'd be a great option for a team like the Rams if they can't get a guy like Barron. And trade back option, early second round, Trey Amos would be a great pick.
Yeah, I've seen Amos and is it Hairston from Kentucky? I think I've seen both of them mocked to the Rams recently anyways.
Yeah, the one guy we're kind of forgetting because of the injury history now is Benjamin Morrison, who, if he's healthy, and I know he's planning a workout here soon, that might get him back on the radar. If you haven't watched his tape from 2023, it's really impressive, and he was a guy very much on the rise. And so when I look at the corners, so Mark, maybe this isn't good news for you. He's my 11th ranked player, so right where the 49ers are picking. I could see if Will Johnson's off the board, Jedi Barron becomes very attractive in the teens to somebody, because after that, that position dries up until the second round. In my opinion, I would much rather be drafting a corner with pick 40 than I would with pick 25 or 26. Right. But that's not to say the second tier guys aren't good, but Jedi Barron, to me, he's just one of those really good football players again. And he's got a lot of great not measurables, I guess. He's not a big guy, but when you look at the speed, when you look at kind of the X factor that he is from a versatility perspective, I wouldn't have very many concerns about popping him outside pretty early in his career. I think he could be like one of the best nickel corners right away, and you might not want to move him off that spot just because he'll be so good there. I think that he has the versatility to hop outside, either in a pinch or to make your defense work. If you've got guys that you don't think can play out there that need to play in nickel and dime situations, he is the guy that you can pop out there and see what he can do. So there's some versatility. I know guys like Dane Brugler from The Athletic, he's a slot only guy for him. I see a little bit more versatility than that, but far be it from me to fight against Dane Brugler. But
hey, Ian, go ahead.
No, I appreciate all the defensive knowledge, because I'm going to need more of it from you guys right now, because I've only been watching on offense, and I will put in the time on defense for sure. I got to ask you about the trenches, D-line, and I'm going to ask you about edge afterwards as well, so you can start mustering those thoughts up as well. Because right now, for the Rams, big picture-wise of who was the starting unit, right? They signed Poona Ford, his tape is tons of fun to watch. That's a great signing that we had. Then you have Kobe Turner. You have Braden Fisk, who played good football as a rookie, right? That's the main 3 D linemen in this, base 3-4 defense. And then you have Jared Verse, Defensive Player of the Year, and Byron Young, who is good, but, goes through the waves like any other young player, where there's bad moments, good moments, yada, yada, yada. So because of those starter spots all taken up currently, but I'll ask about Ed specifically afterwards, in that front, because those guys are locked in as the starters. Who are people on maybe late round 3 and beyond, downward 4, 5, and 6, that would be good players to work and fit in this 3 technique style 3-4 defense for the Rams that you have in mind? I don't know, I'm putting you on the spot a little bit. Sorry.
I'll give you a couple names. The one guy I think is going to be gone by this time, but Joshua Farmer from Florida State. I know Florida State was really good to you in the draft last year. So if he happens to drop down the board, why not go to that same well? And I mean, Jeremy and I are big fans of Kobe Turner. We interviewed him in the pre-draft process before he came out. We're kind of wanting him to go to the Steelers. And that was a great pickup by you all. And I know that he's been really beneficial. But I will say, you're looking for another guy who's maybe not the greatest tester in the world, but a guy who could drop. A really high effort guy, has had a solid offseason. Omar Norman-Lott from Tennessee. Undersized, very good with the hands, very quick off the snap, and he can penetrate. He's not going to be a huge sack guy, but he can push the pocket, and he can generate pressure, force the quarterback out of his comfort zone. And when you talk about disengaging from blocks, he does a really good job being able to keep the running game at that first level, being able to disengage, make contact with the running back, at the very least slow him down and give the linebackers a little extra time to get to them. He's not going to be that space eater in the middle of the field. But if you're talking about a 3 technique, a guy who can get penetration up the front and play on all 3 downs, provide you some sort of value on each down, I think Omar Norman-Lott would be an interesting name to watch kind of in that range. I think he'd be a really good fit for what you all currently have up front.
Right on.
If I'm remembering correctly, I think if you had to pick a weakness on the Rams defensive front, it was probably run defense, right? They weren't a great run defense last year. They could get after the passer, but there were some of the early down stuff was a little bit iffy. A guy that isn't getting any pop right now, but it's just really good, is Jamari Caldwell from Oregon. And if you want a guy who just plugs the run and that's all he does, and he's going to do that 40 snaps a game or whatever, and just take away 2 guys in the opposing offense's blocking scheme, he's that guy. He's not very long armed or anything like that, but he just eats up blocks with his he's very wide set player, eats up a lot of space. So he would be a guy like 4th, 5th round that I think has a chance to be one of those day 3 guys that is an early impact player in a limited role. Are you going to expect him to grow into an incredible multifaceted defensive tackle? No, but if you need that guy that you put on the field against a run heavy team where you don't want to stack the box, but you want to just outmaneuver the bodies that they have on the field, he's the kind of guy that fits that. And then a guy I think who's going to probably be there at the end of the 3rd round when the Rams are picking again. It's just a gut feeling. I've liked him a lot more than this, but Alfred Collins, I know it's another Texas guy. Let's keep the Texas thoughts rolling, but this guy, another space eater in the middle, but he's got the length to be a little bit more versatile. 35-inch arms, 6'5", 330 pounds. This guy is just a monster in the middle of the field. If he's sitting there at the back end of the 3rd round and you need somebody to come in and provide you quality snaps at nose and maybe kick out in the 3 tech, I like him there because of the length. So he would be a guy that I would watch as well.
Right on. Yeah, I got to definitely check out those guys. I appreciate those names. Now, when it comes to the edge, let me ask you guys this fun little tidbit side note. Bill Belichick gets really pissy when you call them edge defenders. Does that bother you guys? Like, is that name bother you? No, right? All right.
Not at all.
I just found that funny. He's like, they're defensive ends. They're not edge defenders. You know. So anyway, with that group, because the Rams really, really enjoyed running the quote-unquote cheetah package where we had no inside linebackers, it was the cheetah dime package where it was 3 outside linebackers, Kobe Turner and Braden as the D tackles, and then obviously the other 6 DBs. The Rams lost Michael Hoyt to the Buffalo Bills. I know he got suspended and he won't play for a little bit, but he was really good in that cheetah dime package as an extra edge rusher who could cover and dropped into that, middle part. I wouldn't say it was like Tampa to him bailing all the way back, but he was roaming around there if they were bluffing on the blitz or they didn't send them all. So because of that, I know the Rams are likely going to want to find some versatile rusher, do-it-all linebacker that could obviously get at the quarterback and then still drop into coverage. Is there anybody in your mind that fits that mold in rounds 1, 2, or 3 that really could be like, all right, that's the guy that could start, play, and then also be a part of this quote-unquote cheetah dime package at the Rams? I think was their best defensive unit majority of the season last year. As you know, they're going to need somebody to replace that. Does anybody come to mind of that?
Well, I think in round 1, Jalen Walker would be the obvious name there. Guy who can play the edge. Some think that he could stay at middle linebacker. I think he could play either extremely well. Both him and Jahad Campbell have experience on the edge. They can both blitz. I think both of them would be great picks. And I mean, I've seen some reports that Jahad, if you're talking about just best player available approach, if he's there at 26, I don't think you could argue with just going and taking the best player available. Jeremy and I both have him, I believe, as a top 10 player in this draft. We both love the tape Jahad Campbell has, and he's got the athleticism to back it up too. I think if you're looking at a guy that plays primarily on the edge and could potentially fill that role, there's a couple names I'll give you real quick. Femi Oladejo, guy who was in the backyard at UCLA. The Rams would have obviously gotten a good look at him. He's added a little bit of weight, and I think he's going to be playing more as an edge rusher, not the greatest dropping into coverage. But I think two other names I'll mention would be Jack Sawyer from Ohio State, a guy who's very athletic, never really put it all together in one season, but flashed down the stretch this year on Ohio State's championship run. And then going to their arch rival, Michigan, Josiah Stewart, as a guy who I think is going to be someone who, just based upon the skill set and what he was asked to do at Michigan, all those guys, they have the ability to drop into coverage, kind of play that role that you're talking about, do a little bit of everything. They can blitz, they can play in a 3-point if you need them to, but ideally they're going to be more of that stand-up edge rusher, but also can drop into coverage on obvious passing situations.
I was literally going to say Josiah Stewart and Jack Sawyer. Anderson, you took the words right out of my mouth. Josiah Stewart's really intriguing there because I don't like him as a full-time edge rusher. I'd like to see him play a little bit as like a chess piece back there. But let me pose to you guys, you're the Rams fans, you're more plugged in obviously than we are. But if somehow, some way, Jahad Campbell or Jalen Walker are there in the first round, I'm the Rams, those are two guys that I would absolutely run the card to the table for what they can do for you on the defensive side of the ball. Now, personally, I think Jahad Campbell's not going past Tampa. I think that if he gets to Tampa, they're doing that same thing. They're tripping over themselves, getting the card to the table.
Yeah, Todd Bowles taking them. You're right. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Jalen Walker, there's a little bit of a range on his upside or on his where he's going to go because, again, production, like Andrew was saying at the top of the show, production just really wasn't there. But what was he asked to do at Georgia? He was kind of the mistake hider, not the playmaker. I think he's got the athleticism to go be a playmaker at the next level. If he's hanging around there at 26, I know you need some offensive weapons. I'd be much more willing to look at him with some of the other offensive weapons that I can get later. You can't get another Jalen Walker for that upside past the first round.
Yeah, I think historically, most Ram fans would 100% agree with you. And there's probably a couple of positions on the defensive side that we need to improve to really take this defense to the next level. It's a pretty good unit right now, but linebacker, we have a void there. And most Ram fans would agree with you, but I think Ian may agree with me, maybe not. I just don't see the Rams drafting linebacker in the first round. I wish they would, but they just don't ever seem to go there, right, Ian?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if it's an outside linebacker like a Jared Verse, someone that's rushing the quarterback more times than not, then they'll obviously take that shot. But any primary inside linebacker / rush the passer second guy, gentlemen, for your future mocks and future evaluations for the Rams, they don't give a damn about inside linebackers. Rounds 3 and later. Undrafted guys, they'll always be like, yep, like Ernest Jones was an awesome
trade
option
options.
For us.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
He was a 3rd round pick not too long ago. Yes, in previous years under Les Snead, they were taking, Al Ogletree and other players I'm just blanking on real quick off the top of my head with higher draft picks and yada, yada, yada. But those days under the McVay era are done. But you never know because Les Snead does love Georgia players and he does love players from Texas, like a lot. So he'll be tempted for sure. But if we all know one thing as Rams fans is that McVay has final say over a lot of the draft picks and personnel and signings and kind of everything. It's not really said, but it's kind of like understood based on who gets brought into the team and on a year-in-year basis, free agent signings, etc. So if McVay is unsure, he'll lean on his guys. But if McVay really wants some offensive guy, you can bet your behinds that defense is not happening.
Yeah, remember
especially inside linebacker.
We rolled with Troy Reader for like 2 years. So
yeah. I'm looking at a linebacker group that I really don't like this year, outside of maybe the first couple guys. I don't know, Andrew, if you've got anybody that kind of fits. Jack Kaiser out of Notre Dame has some versatility. Was he a name you were going to mention, Andrew? Because he would be the one that's like a day 2 guy, maybe early day 3 if he falls.
I think he's a day 3 guy. I'll mention 2 other names that I really like. Smail Mondon from Georgia. If you're looking for a rangy guy, I know this guy didn't test. I expect him to run a lot better, but when you watch him on tape, he's very fluid in coverage. One of the most fluid cover linebackers in this class. If you're looking for a tackle machine, a guy that is very undersized, but when you combine his athleticism with his production, and you talk about another MAC guy, MAC is, it's that conference that's not, it's not the Power 5 conference, but you see players consistently coming out of that conference each year and being productive NFL players. Sean Dolak is one of the best collegiate linebackers this past season. Absolute tackle machine. And when you talk about a guy with just the instincts, the will, the drive, and just the technique of being able to play that middle linebacker position, I think Sean Dolak's going to be a steal for some team, probably 4th or 5th round. If you can get Sean Dolak in the 5th round, that is incredible value. This guy's got some speed from sideline to sideline too. Needs to add a little bit more weight, but 5'11", 227. This guy was a great tackler in college. It's one of those players you just kind of got to throw the measurables out and just be like, okay, this is a good football player. Where can we make him fit on our team?
And I should have mentioned Quay Robinson out of Alabama too, as kind of one of those, if you need him to play on the edge, he can do that, but he's probably best as kind of your sideline to sideline buck, right?
An special teamer.
Yeah, special teamer. He's gonna be an elite special teamer pretty quickly. So if you want multifaceted pick in the 4th round, he's your guy.
Schlesinger is going to go in the 2nd, probably out of UCLA.
I would think so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's an intriguing prospect too.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, gents. For my last offensive question, I have to scratch it. It's offense. Running back, because a lot of the Rams fan base right now is pretty pissed at Kyren Williams for the way that Philly game ended in the playoffs in the snow, where he fumbled in a crucial time. Other games throughout his starting tenure where he's had big fumbles and big games. And look, I'm a Kyren fan, but I think everyone can universally accept that he is not a home run hitting threat. I love his pass blocking, all the things. But when I did my rankings and list of running backs, so I think are 1st, 2nd, or 3rd round worthy, it is a ton. So I ask you this, because we have 2 running backs, or even 3 you could consider as like the thunder of this run game, we need a lightning who is versatile. Who is somebody in rounds 2 and 3 that you think would fit with what McVay wants to do and could be that lightning to the thunder that is Kyren and Blake Corum if we see him get more carries?
I'll give you one. I know that Jeremy's got one guy that he really likes. I like him as well, but I'm almost positive he's going to mention him, so I'll save that for him. But 2 guys that I think would be great fits. RJ Harvey, he's probably an early day 3 guy from UCF, very twitchy in the open field. Love his game. One of my favorite running backs is DJ Giddens from Kansas State. The guy is a human juke move. I'm just waiting to happen. Not the most power in between the tackles, but when you talk about, let's just throw Kyren Williams out of the picture. I'm a huge Blake Corum fan. And this guy, even though he's not the biggest guy, we know how tough he is in between the tackles. This guy can get the tough yard. If you pair that with a guy like Giddens, who needs to work on his pass blocking 100%, but as a pure pass catcher and in the open field as a runner and his ability to hit that home run and be able to make defenders miss in the open field, I think he would add the extra element that you guys currently don't have in that backfield. I think you pair Giddens with Blake Corum, you got one of the best young running back duos in the entire league.
Sick.
I like that. I really do. Giddens is fun. He's kind of one of those fun watches more than like, oh wow, he's gone kind of watches. When you start talking about stylistically, is it Bashal Tootin, Andrew, that you thought I was going to talk about. Yeah. So that's my dude, man. That's my guy.
Virginia Tech, his film is crazy too.
Oh man, it's insane. And when he hits the hole, it is over. You better have some lightning quick defensive backs to chase this guy down, because he is absolutely that lightning aspect. The other guy I would mention here who's flying under the radar, but it's another Texas guy, Jaden Blue, 4.38 at his pro day, and he's not going to wow you with, the physicality necessarily, but get him going ahead of steam. And this guy is another one of those guys who has hit the hole and gone. And he doesn't need a lot of space to get to top gear either. He is very, very twitchy in that regard, but has that fourth gear where you got a guy on your tail and it looks like he's going to chase you down, and then you just kick it into another gear and you finish it. Those would be the two guys where I'm like, day 2, early day 3, we're fixing the lightning aspect to our offense that we don't currently possess.
Yeah, I think Ian, they hit 3 of the guys you love, right?
Hey man, these are what do I have? RJ Harvey. RJ Harvey, I have a 2nd round grade on him. Jaden Blue, I have a 3rd, and then I also have, let me say, it's Bashal, right? That's how you pronounce his first name,
Yep.
Bashal Tootin, and I have like a 2nd, 3rd, depending on your flavor. But let me ask you something about Tootin though, because watching film, there was a lot of just pure zone running plays, not a lot of gap, not a lot of all the fun concepts in that. The Rams obviously teetering more towards gap stuff, a lot of duo, a lot of wham blocks. Are you worried about guys coming out that haven't done it? I know a lot of people have even argued for, we don't have to talk about him, but like Caleb Johnson from Iowa, he's a heavy zone guy, similar to Tootin. Let's say Tootin is there in that 3rd round, and it's like, oh, this would be perfect. Do you think that crossover or that switch from heavy zone to the gap, do you think that would be an issue for him? What are your thoughts on that, gentlemen, for Tootin from Virginia Tech?
If I had to pick, I think it's harder to go from being a gap guy to being a zone guy. That just doesn't really correlate. The Pittsburgh Steelers ran into that issue with Najee Harris. It's just not something that you can transition to. You've either got that innate patience in you to kind of wait for the guys to get to their defender and then go, or you don't. And so Tootin, I think he's got the requisite like burst to be kind of a gap guy, where it's like, okay, we're hitting man to man on our blocks here, and we are opening the 2 gap on the right side between the tackles. Let's just get there as fast as we can before those holes collapse. I think he's got the potential to be able to do that. The one thing I'll say about Tootin is the fumbles are an issue. So if Rams fans are mad at Kyron Johnson, or excuse me, Kyron Williams, then I think that this guy might not be the pick then, if you're worried about that. Andrew, let me throw this out here to you though. What about pairing Blake Corum with his former teammate Donovan Edwards in the 5th or 6th round in this draft? That makes sense to me for that lightning aspect too.
Yeah, if Donovan Edwards is there, I mean, this guy's faster than 4.45. That's what he ran. But you watch his tape, this guy has true breakaway speed. Just watch the Ohio State game from a couple years ago. I always like to remind Jeremy of that game.
No, we're not going to do that. We're not going to watch that game again.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, gentlemen. But yeah, I like this running back class a lot, man.
Me too.
We'll see what happens. And even for your Steelers, I know you guys need a running back too, huh? Whew.
Yeah.
See who's going to get them first, right? That's really it.
Man, Pittsburgh's brought in 8 running backs for top 30 visits already, so we know they're going at running back hard.
It's on. Heck yeah.
Hey, I really appreciate you guys joining us. Hey, one more time, share with everybody how they can find you, your podcast.
Yeah, so the Draft Dynasty podcast, you can find it on the Fans First Sports NFL feed, wherever you get your podcasts. Every now and then we get thrown up on YouTube there as well. Happened to me last week when I was wearing a tank top and I wasn't ready for it. I was leaning back on the couch and I was like, Jeff, come on, man. Let me know ahead of time here. But I'll let Andrew too plug all the draft work he's doing on Steel Curtain Network and Fans for Sports. He's doing a lot of scouting reports, and then his big 7-round mock draft will be coming out week of the draft as well. So.
Yeah, we have individual scouting reports on a lot of the top prospects. We're going through round 2 and round 3 guys. So we'll have a lot of that. I'll have a final big board go with full breakdowns of the top 50 to 100 players, and then I'll have the rankings for the top probably 250 guys that will come out the week of the draft. We'll also do position rankings, and then mock 4.0 should be coming out this upcoming week. And then, of course, the week of the draft, we'll have the final 7-round mock predicting every pick in the entire draft. So that's always a fun.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Hey, thanks a lot. I really appreciate you joining us on a Wednesday night. And hey, let's get you back. Let's do that fantasy football segment again, maybe come August or so. How about that?
Absolutely. That'd be fun. We'd love it.
Okay, guys. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay. Have a good night.